Okay, Oscar nuts. Today, Producer Guild of America nominations came out, which usually are one of our best sets of tea leaves for what will be nominated at the Oscars. And we've already heard from lots of guilds and, of course, the Golden Globes. It's time to take stock of where we stand. I'm Tom O'Neill with Gold Derby. My cohorts here, Chris Beachum, our managing editor, and Daniel Montgomery, our senior editor. All right, the nominees are Big Short, Bridge of Spies, Brooklyn, Ex Machina, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, The Martian, Revenant, Mad Max, Sicario, Spotlight, Straight Out of Compton. The big surprises here, of course, are Ex Machina and Sicario getting in. We hadn't seen that coming. The omissions, the jaw droppers, Where Are Room and Carol? Where is Star Wars? You'd think if anybody would love the Star Wars, those money-grubbing producers would certainly love it. But it's not there. Neither is Steve Jobs, Danish Girl, Hateful Eight, Joy. Let's start with you, Daniel. What's your takeaway on all this?
Yeah, I mean, it is bad news for Star Wars, although I suppose maybe you could look at it as those greedy producers are jealous that they can't open a movie opposite Star Wars for the next, like, 6 months or however long it takes.
Oh, I like that. That's great. That's hilarious.
But yeah, I think that was on the bubble. I think it still might be. We're going to see that get in at a lot of technical awards and a lot of the technical guilds. It got in at the Art Directors Guild, and it'll probably get some more there. So it could still have enough support potentially for the Oscar. I'm a little bit more worried about Carol. For it not to get in here, and then it was also snubbed at the Art Directors Guild, where they had 3 art direction categories, and the one for period film, which is where Carol would have competed, it wasn't in there. The Revenant got in there, and the Revenant doesn't even really have many sets, so it's sort of unusual for it to lose out on both of these awards, and it might not be looking too good for that film right now.
Chris, what do you think? What's going on here?
Well, as we were talking before we started, Star Wars, I understand Daniel's point there, but the Producers Guild has always welcomed, some blockbusters, and even sometimes blockbusters that really had no shot at a Best Picture nomination at the Oscars. And that's one reason why I was predicting Straight Outta Compton to get in here. You've been proclaiming that for months, Tom, and I do think it's got a really good shot at a Best Picture nomination with the Academy Awards, especially because it's in at SAG now, it's in it for the Producers Guild. I'm with Daniel though. Carol really has not had a good day. I mean, the Producers Guild should have been an obvious choice, and then the Art Directors Guild. Come on, I mean that was a beautiful movie, no matter what you thought of the rest of it. Room. As we're out at these parties in New York with Daniel and Paul and the rest of us here in Los Angeles, Room is one of those films that gets talked about at every single conversation, and I'm a little surprised it didn't make it in here, aren't you?
Yes and no. I think I saw a pattern recently here, Chris. Tell me what you think here. The female perspective films are on the out. Carol, Joy, Room. Now, Brooklyn got in. That's the one exception here, but there is a suspicious pattern going on here. Room, of course, is the one we do hear from Academy members often, but Carol is the one that's done so well with the film critics groups, of course. Let me kind of draw some guild parallels here for you guys. No movie has swept the boards, really. Even Spotlight got shut out of the Ace Eddie Awards. The Martian missed SAG Award nominations. Room didn't get missed SAG Ensemble and missed PGA. Big Short has done well across the board here, but it was not nominated for Director at the Globes or the Critics' Choice Awards. You usually need that. As they point out in our message boards, since 1995, no film has won Best Picture without SAG, ACE, and PGA nominations. Big Short has all 3, so does Spotlight. Straight Outta Compton has PGA and SAG Ensemble, but not the Ace Eddie. Mad Max missed any kind of acting awards at SAG, but of course, did we really expect it would? It did get the stunt nomination there. So I mean, as we look across all of these guilds for guidance here, there's no one thing that's consistently popping out, right, Daniel?
Yeah, and it's interesting. The things that seem to be performing the most strongly or the most consistently are the films that seem like any other year we would write them off as like, it's not an Academy movie. Like a film like Mad Max, most years we wouldn't think that's ever an Academy kind of movie. And same thing with The Big Short. Even though The Big Short does have sort of prestigious subject matter, it's from Adam McKay, who's best known for his comedy, the Anchorman movies, and it does have kind of a jokey, bro-y kind of a tone at times. So I mean, these are films that I would think, okay, they're starting to look strong, but I mean, I still look at Spotlight and see like it hasn't gotten everything. It did miss out at the Eddie Awards, but it's done well enough for me not to. It hasn't been fatally hurt yet, even though Ace was kind of a surprise. So I'm still thinking Spotlight, but there's definitely more wiggle room than there has been.
Right, I could see the Producers Guild, for example, going for Straight Outta Compton for the win, for example. Remember, this is the group that went with The Crying Game. So they liked sometimes to surprise us with these predictions. Now, the voting process has changed radically through the years since The Crying Game won. But I see that all of these are vulnerable is the point. Chris, 5 films seem to be safe now for Best Picture. Spotlight, Big Short, Mad Max, Martian, Revenant. Do you agree with that?
I do, but this is such a wild year. I'm still not 100% sold that Mad Max is actually going to be a Best Picture nominee at the Oscars.
Oh, get over it, honey. It's in the way things are going. Right, Daniel?
Oh,
Mad Max.
I agree with everything. It's getting everything it needs to get, but something in the back of my mind just keeps wondering who are those voters that are going to mark that number one.
I sort of agree with with Chris's skepticism, and of course it's different because it's an expanded field of Best Picture, anywhere between 5 and 10 nominees instead of just 5 like it was in years past. But if you look at The Dark Knight especially, there is a film that was doing very well at most events, with most groups, and it just wasn't the Academy's kind of movie. So it got 8 nominations, but it missed picture, director, screenplay. Dreamgirls had a similar successful run until the Oscars decided no. I think it was the most nominated film that year, but it wasn't up for Best Picture. So I agree. It's not the Academy's type of movie. So even though it's ticking all the boxes, like every single one of them so far, I'm hesitant to call it a lock for a nomination.
The 5 movies that seem to be in good position now for a nomination at the Oscars include Straight Outta Compton, Room, Carol, Star Wars. I agree is still in there. Ex Machina could break in. But Beasts, which looked strong when it got a SAG Ensemble nomination, Chris, suddenly has lost momentum recently, hasn't it? Hateful Eight, Danish Girl have not seemed to score strongly anywhere except for, a script or for your friend Jennifer Jason Leigh. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I want to back up for just a second. The Big Short is really starting to get my attention. I would think it and The Martian are front runners this weekend, battling it out for that comedy award at the Globes. So it'll be interesting to see which way they go there. You got to feel like The Big Short's going to maybe win a screenplay Oscar, as well as maybe the editing Oscar. If Adam McKay gets in for DGA, which, it's a lot of TV directors. He comes from a TV background, and he comes from a comedy background. If he can somehow get in at DGA, this may be a real race between Big Short and Spotlight.
I think that's the one thing that The Big Short is missing, that it has disadvantaged it against something like Spotlight. Neither of them is, when you look at it, it's a director-heavy movie. Like, you don't look at it, and it's not, a lot of big directorial flourishes the way, like, Mad Max is and The Martian is. But Tom McCarthy for Spotlight has been getting nominated consistently at just pretty much every event, and Adam McKay hasn't yet. So if Adam McKay can start bridging that gap and start showing up in some of these directing races, DGA is obviously the key, then it's a horse race. Until then, I don't think The Big Short is a big contender to win Best Picture unless I see Adam McKay maybe get in at DGA.
What about when you look at something like the experts' predictions? I'm going to go Golden Globes now for this weekend. They're saying Martian wins Best Comedy Picture at the Globes. I changed my prediction to Big Short a couple days ago. all of a sudden I think that has the scope, the feeling of importance, the A-list cast. Where do you guys? What's your prediction for comedy picture at the Globes? You first, Daniel.
I'm predicting The Martian, but I'm also thinking about changing. And one, it's because The Big Short is surging, like the Grand Budapest Hotel was surging last year when it sort of stole Best Picture from Birdman at the Golden Globes. And another factor that I thought about is I think, because I know when we were talking about categories and comedy versus drama at the Globes, didn't The Martian just squeak by into comedy?
Yes, right. Big Short is a comedy, and Martian is not. There's a lot of controversy.
I can see, if you're a member of the Hollywood Foreign Press who did not vote to let The Martian into Best Comedy or Musical Picture, I can see you, even if you like the film, you might say, yeah, but you're not a comedy, I'm going to vote for The Big Short instead. So, normally I would think, okay, The Martian has the directing nomination at Globes and The Big Short doesn't, so it has more support in that sense. But if enough members, and it's a small group, the Hollywood Foreign Press, so if enough of them objected to it being considered a comedy and still feel that way, that might be enough for them to say, you know what, I'm giving this to The Big Short.
So what's your prediction going to be, Daniel?
I think I'm convincing myself to switch over to The Big Short.
Chris, where do you stand on that race?
We are identical. I've got The Martian and then The Big Short, but you're both convincing me maybe that's wrong. The other thing to remember is, they really like to spread the wealth among the films and among the studios, keep everybody happy. So if I'm right that, Matt Damon's going to win actor, and I really, really, really believe Ridley Scott will win his first Globe for directing, then they may very well go The Big Short, to spread the wealth a little. They don't want to give The Martian 3 awards.
Right. At other awards, it's very common that the same movie will sweep, of course, but the Globes are very different that way.
Matt Damon has never won for acting, and he's the kind of guy they normally like, a blockbuster kind of guy, somebody that would be fun on stage. I could certainly see a Christian Bale winning or a Steve Carell winning, but they've won pretty recently, whereas Matt Damon has only won a screenplay award almost 20 years ago. So that's why I'm thinking that he wins there, and Ridley Scott, potentially winning for directing, and that would put The Big Short in even a better position to win picture.
Daniel, let's talk about the hottest, most important of all the Globe races, which is Best Drama Actor. Leo needs to win this to win the Oscar. If Will Smith or Bryan Cranston pulls off an upset on Sunday night and does a really great job at that podium, do you agree with me that suddenly we have a whole different race here? It's not Leo's in the bag anymore, is it, the Oscar?
Oh yeah, I think we're all on sort of dangerous ground where so many of us are just, he is the presumptive favorite, and it's entirely a presumption because he's been nominated everywhere that counts, SAG, Critics' Choice, Golden Globes, everything like that, but we haven't seen him in a head-to-head contest for a win yet. So if he's as strong as we think he is, and the film has been getting Best Picture nominations also, which helps his case also. He needs to start winning at the Golden Globes, or else it's going to be like, oh, maybe we underestimated someone else, or maybe we were misjudging this race for the whole time. Because if there's even one slight chink in his armor, especially this early on, it could cascade.
The past 3 years, Chris, the Oscar winners won first at the Golden Globes every single time, with one exception. Jennifer Lawrence beat Lupita Nyong'o in that supporting actress race 2 years ago. So do you agree here that Leo, it's a gotta win for Leo Sunday at the Globes?
I do, for 2 reasons. One, they love him anyway, so if they suddenly slap him back, and give it to somebody else, he's won, what, 2 times, 3 times?
He's won twice. He's won for Aviator and for Wolf of Wall Street, yeah.
Also, if you look at the 5 here, he's the only one that's also got a drama picture nomination. So that indicates wider support than the other guys have. I think if he can't win here with the Globes, he may be in trouble.
Interesting.
One thing to mention, though, this weekend, we heard for weeks, maybe months, that Michael Fassbender would not be out campaigning. And I don't know what other events he's doing. I know he was in Palm Springs this weekend, and then he was at a brunch I went to on Sunday.
I saw your selfie with him on Facebook, Chris. I was stunned that you got Michael Fassbender. How did you get him to pose for a selfie with you.
He was shaking every hand. He was kissing babies. He was making photos. He was telling jokes. I mean, he is a good actor. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Because we got to say that he did say early on this Oscar season, I am not campaigning. He was just dead set against it, proclaimed that he wouldn't do it, but now it's heating up.
Yeah, he is a threat here, but I think the lack of a Steve Jobs nomination in picture does hurt.
What's your prediction in this race for Globes, Chris?
DiCaprio.
You, Daniel?
Yeah, DiCaprio.
Okay, we got to sign off now. We have a few more days to do more Slugfest before Sunday, but I've got to dash and do something else right away. We will push this through so people can start seeing some of our reactions, and we'll keep talking. All of a sudden, we got a race on our hands in all of these top categories. This is exciting. So let's all giddy up. Thanks.